New Arizona Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon has a tall task ahead of him. What are the three things he needs to fix regarding the Arizona Cardinals?
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Ultimate GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise? Then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the App Store. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDON in all caps in the game. So Jonathan Gannon has his introductory press conference tomorrow, early morning, I think 10 a.m. I'll be doing my Thursday podcast reacting to what he says, when he addresses the local media for the first time, what it feels like, and I'll talk about that tomorrow. And I do want to clarify a couple things before I move into the three things that I think he needs to fix regarding the Arizona Cardinals. Is just because I saw another option as being the better option, Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator of the Bengals, over Jonathan Gannon for a couple different reasons that, the point is moot now. So I don't need to, discuss that. But this hire is a win just because, regardless, it's a step forward from where we've been witnessing over the last 4 seasons. Some wins, some losses, highs, lows, all the way through. And it wasn't always necessarily about the win-loss record. It definitely wasn't about the win-loss record in 2021. It was about the body of work. And the body of work wasn't cutting it. And now, regardless of who they hired, and I've talked about this a couple times throughout the offseason, it's a win. Because they're moving away from Cliff Kingsbury, because they're moving away from Steve Keim, it's going to be a win for the Arizona Cardinals and hopefully for a long-term future. Now, Jonathan Gannon hired a 5-year deal. I wonder why. I think they probably gave him an extra year because Kyler Murray is going to be hurt during the portion of this season. I'm going to go much more in depth about expectations for Jonathan Gannon in his first year, expectations for his tenure, expectations for what Monti Ossenfort isn't going to need to do to revamp this roster starting a few weeks from now in the draft. But there are 3 things that the Arizona Cardinals need fixed. And Jonathan Gannon is now tasked to complete the fixing. First of which, building a relationship with his quarterback that's substantiated in the fact that he is a player. He is not the, the all-knowing force that he kind of was able to be around Cliff Kingsbury. Number 2, the defense and maturing, massaging talent and yielding more what I call oh my God moments from every single young player on the defensive side of the ball. That's 2. And then number 3, ushering in an ecosystem of fear from opposition and never, ever having to do with complacency, which is what we've seen at times from players during the last 4 seasons. Now, the first one with Kyler Murray, that's not a knock on Kyler Murray. This is something that we're witnessing right now with the Arizona Cardinals that never should have come to this point. It never should have gotten here. Having a healthy head coach and quarterback relationship, regardless of if the head coach is defensive driven or offensive driven, is paramount. It's everything. It's the head of the snake. And what we've seen ever since Cliff was hired and Kyler was drafted was kind of like a co-ownership of Kyler Murray's role. Like here's the thing. Kyler Murray is an elite talent. I believe that. Kyler Murray has greatness in him, and we've seen it. We just need it at more, sustained stages. But there needs to be a hierarchy where head coach stands alone. Even in New England, with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick would roast Tom Brady. Like, you're still an employee. All of the players on the field. The head coach needs to be the leader. And it starts with the relationship between he and Kyler Murray. Now, we saw the video from the Arizona Cardinals Twitter page of him going and saying, let's win, hugging Kyler. Like, Kyler looked excited. Kyler was doing a rehab. That's great. Do I think it was staged? No. I think that's genuinely two people who are happy to be in the situation that they're in. I feel like Kyler Murray got tired of Cliff Kingsbury. He grew out of Cliff Kingsbury being able to help him. And Jonathan Gannon, at least, even though he's never been a head coach before, has been revered by many front office members across this whole process. There are multiple reports out like that. And now, starting tomorrow, during his introductory press conference, from then through hopefully 5, 10, 15 years from now, Jonathan Gannon and Kyler Murray will have a relationship that is predicated upon a strong foundation, accountability, and praise when necessary. I find it hard to believe that Kyler Murray will be sitting on the sideline, on the bench by himself without any sort of head coach contact after a good play, after a bad play. Jonathan Gannon is the hype guy. He's the antithesis of Cliff Kingsbury. And that is not the most important thing, because I'll talk about that later, but this is the second most important thing, but the most front-loaded thing that needs to change now. Head coach, quarterback relationship for the future. That's it. Because if that doesn't happen, you're going to have uncomfortable conversations. And excuse me, I don't want to have any more damn uncomfortable conversations, at least not for a while. That's all we've talked about since 2017, and I'm sick of it. I want to talk about rainbows and butterflies and not who should get fired. I don't like talking about it. I do because it's necessary. When others won't, I will, and that's not going to change. I'm not tooting my own horn. I'd rather get flack for talking about things straightforwardly than sugarcoat things that aren't there. And thank you for withstanding those, even if you don't necessarily agree with me from time to time. Thank you for that, because I know that it's not traditional. I don't care. I appreciate those you who have stuck with me through all of these, ups and downs, man. Like, it's tough sometimes. I love this, okay? It's great. I mean, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but like, wouldn't it be nice to have a copacetic head coach and quarterback relationship that's not foundationalized on the fact that one wanted to coach the other since he was in high school? Can we maybe graduate from High School Musical with that, please? That's not the most important overall. It's the most important on the field, because if your head coach and quarterback have a good relationship, the rest will see that and want to mirror it. If there's trouble brewing at the head of the snake, the rest of the body's got no chance. It's the first thing that Jonathan Gannon needs to fix. Head coach, quarterback relationship. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. What's next? What's next? Talent development on the defensive side of the ball. I will talk about that. I promise. First, I'm super excited, though, to talk about our friends over at Ultimate Pro Football GM, I should say. This episode of Locked On Cardinals, in fact, is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard me talk about this mobile game app, and I can't tell you how much fun I had competing against my fellow Locked On hosts. Chris Carter, Locked On Steelers, that rascal, was our Locked On NFL champion. Well, now it's your turn to compete, but more on that later. Ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is definitely for you. You'll manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through seasons, and lead your team to glory through trying to build a dynasty. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, navigating your franchise to free agency and the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go, as you want, and when you want to. We've created Locked On League for you to compete against Locked On fans all over the world, man. Can you be the ultimate Locked On Football GM? Choose the Locked On League in the app to join. Can you create a football dynasty? Locked On Cardinals listeners can get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today, right now. Go do it. Dang it. There are three things that Jonathan Gannon needs to fix as it pertains to the Arizona Cardinals. First, the relationship between the head coach and quarterback. It's not the most important overall, but from coach to player, it absolutely is, because that is what stirs the drink. That is what makes this, raft go down the river, whatever you want to use. That's the catalyst. That's the jet fuel for making the Arizona Cardinals a winning organization. Head coach, quarterback relationship. Strong, stable, to the moon. Number one. Number two, player development on the defensive side of the ball. The Cardinals are going to be in a precarious spot over the next couple seasons. First, Budda Baker's contract is going to be up in a couple years. What do you do with him? Okay. Byron Murphy, now, are you going to pay him? Zach Allen, now, are you going to pay him? Isaiah Simmons, after this year, are they going to pick up his fifth-year option? I think they need to pick it up the second that they have the opportunity to, because it'll save them money. It'll give them another 17 games to look, and it won't be another Hassan Reddick situation. And then Zaven Collins, and then Marco Wilson, and then whoever they draft. There's so much young talent that if coached correctly, not only from who the defensive coordinator is going to be, whether it's Vance Joseph or otherwise, but the head coach can bear fruits in perpetuity for this team. Like, imagine being able to check boxes on the defensive side of the ball where you can set and forget. I call them the pillars of the defense. I've called them that since 2017 when I took over this podcast. Budda Baker is the only pillar on the defense. I guess you could say Jalen Thompson as well. He's earned that. Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson. That's it. Out of 11 starters, only the safety room is set and forget. And that's terrifying. Now, that's not to say that with some coaching and some talent development, you could add 6 or 7 after this season. Like, the potential is there. Executing that is something that the Cardinals have had trouble with. Last year was more of a throwaway year for the defense than it was for the offense. The defense had no shot. The defense had no shot, regardless of how you feel about Vance Joseph. The defense had no chance to look good last year. The entire offseason was predicated around building up the offense. Instead of drafting a corner and an edge rusher in the first 2 rounds, they traded for a wide receiver and drafted a tight end. I said it on draft day on the Locked On NFL Draft Special, and everybody thought it was crazy. It's like, look at what needs are needed for this team. Now, when you look now, they're probably going to draft Will Anderson at 3. We'll talk way more about the draft later on. But if you draft an edge rusher, you draft an interior defensive lineman in Jalen Carter out of Georgia, even more so. Talent development needs to start the second that player is drafted. And that's something that's severely lacked for guys like Byron Murphy and Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons. Part of the reason why for the latter two is that they didn't know where to play them. Tried Isaiah Simmons and tried him playing him inside off ball. It's like, what are you doing? That's not what he's good at. So if Jonathan Gannon can come in and be like, okay, Isaiah Simmons, edge rusher. You're going to play outside now. See quarterback, hit quarterback. That's your job. I don't know why that hasn't happened yet. I don't care what the numbers say. And I don't care logistically. Well, just make it happen. Isaiah Simmons is a terror. 6'3", 245, under 4'5", 40. He makes Hassan Reddick look like me, stature-wise. And he still is fast. So with Jonathan Gannon, he's going to take, catalog of what this defense looks like and be like, okay, that's going to change, that's going to change, that's going to change. And it could be bingo, bango, bungo here. It's like a Wheel of Fortune. It's like you're trying to figure out a puzzle, and the Cardinals are still trying to guess the same letter that's already been guessed and been guessed incorrectly. So if Jonathan Gannon can evaluate and elevate talent on the defensive side of the ball, because the Cardinals have so much, and that's why it's so frustrating. You add a couple veteran pieces in the offseason, and you let the talent speak and have the talent be coached and not have one arm and one leg tied behind your back because the offense isn't performing, whether it be injury or otherwise. This could take one offseason for the Cardinals just to pivot to a trajectory of winning. It's going to be tough for the first half of the season, and I'll talk about this a lot, win-loss doesn't matter in 2023. Win-loss doesn't matter in 2023. What does matter, the third thing that Jonathan Gannon needs to fix, no complacency, ready to play, mindset, be feared. The Arizona Cardinals need to be feared, and they need to be feared starting the day after his introductory press conference, which is tomorrow. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Just because I thought Lou Anarumo was the right guy doesn't mean that Jonathan Gannon's not a win. And that's on me for not clarifying that. That's on me. And this isn't backtracking. This is just me clarifying. And I apologize for not doing that properly the first time. Hopefully, you can forgive me. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. The third thing that Jonathan Gannon needs to fix about the Arizona Cardinals. Next, first, this episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Three things Jonathan Gannon needs to fix immediately with the Arizona Cardinals. 1, quarterback-head coach relationship, paramount. 2, molding this young talent on the defensive side of the ball specifically in an effort to find this just treasure chest of talent that the Cardinals already have. They just need to be coached better and need to be coached in a way where you're not relying on the offense to lead the charge. This needs to be equal opportunity here. Offense and defense needs to be equal strength. And I'd be 100% okay with the defense being a stronger side of the ball than the offense if it's framed that way, if it's meant to be that way. It happened by accident during the first 4 seasons of Kyler Murray's career. It did. We can disagree. It did. The defense was the more stable side of the ball the whole time. The entire time. The third thing that Jonathan Gannon needs to fix, mindset, culture, ecosystem, no complacency, coming out looking for blood every single game, proverbially. And it starts in practice. It starts in the film room. I'm assuming the practices are going to be a little bit more difficult than what they have been. I'm assuming that the Sandals resort trips of practice that Cliffy Baby, allowed isn't going to be the case much anymore. The Arizona Cardinals need to be feared. The Arizona Cardinals need to be respected. The Arizona Cardinals need a glass-shattering change with the planogram that's been their existence for 60-plus years. It needs to change. It needs to have teeth. It needs to be, the kids in Little Giants eating Alka-Seltzer, and it looks like they're salivating, seizuring. That's what it needs to be. And it's funny, a joke, because that was a great movie, but that's what needs to happen. Nobody fears the Cardinals. That's just what it is. Even when they were 7-0 and 10-2, every single Locked On host that I did a crossover Thursday with, I asked, Do you think the Cardinals are legit? Every single one of them said no. Even when Kyler Murray was leading in the MVP voting, even when Cliff Kingsbury is looked at to be potentially the NFL Coach of the Year, nobody believed it. You know why? They had no reason to. And that's what needs to change. And it starts from planting seeds. It starts from building the bedrock foundation. It starts with a complete tabula rasa, clean slate, Arizona Cardinals 2.0 shift. And that's where we are. It just needs to be executed. And this is on Jonathan Gannon. This is not something Monti Ossenfort can help with. Sure, drafting, free agency, of course. But it's more than that. It's more than the players. It's more than the talent. The Cardinals are going to be able to draft talent. They have the 3rd pick overall in every round in the 2023 draft, plus other picks. They're going to be able to draft talent. It's a mindset. It's a culture shift. It's a foundation strengthening. They need to pour new cement and get rid of the old foundation. Start over. It's going to be clunky. It's going to be weird. I've talked about this and I've equated this a lot. The Cardinals are 13-year-old with braces right now. Very clunky, awkward stage. And it's Jonathan Gannon and Monti Ossenfort's collective job by probably the start of the 2024 season to get this organization to graduate college. Away from the awkward, driver's license, graduate high school, graduate college, be a full-fledged winning organization. Or on the path to be, I should say. Starting a year from week 1 in the 2023 season, a year from that. But this is the biggest task that Jonathan Gannon has. Change everything we've known about the Arizona Cardinals. Can he do it? Sure. And you know why I'm fully believing and bought into that? Because he has the opportunity to. And that's something that Bruce Arians did for a bit, but Steve Keim being there, and these aren't knocks on the aforementioned GM and head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. This is just referencing what we've experienced, whether it be you as fans, me as media member, whatever, covering the team. This is what we've experienced. The fact that Jonathan Gannon has the capability to do something that no head coach has been able to do since 2013, and even before that, is massive. Having the opportunity to do something is where it all starts. You can have the best talent in the world, but if your infrastructure is screwed, it doesn't matter. It's not a matter of if, it's when things will crumble. Now the Cardinals have an opportunity to rebuild that infrastructure, starting with the scaffolding on the outside and building the foundation up in an effort to be sustained, capable, stable, functional, and winning organization. They have that. They have the capability and opportunity to do it, something they haven't had in the last decade. And that's massive. But Jonathan Gannon is tasked with a tall task of doing it. And one thing I do implore people, because early on, he's going to nail the press conference. You already know it. He's going to nail it. Okay? He's going to have people ready to do high knees and run wind sprints at State Farm Stadium for him immediately. Like me too. I would do it. You already know that's going to happen. It's after the draft, free agency, when you start to see voluntary workouts, mandatory workouts, things like that into training camp is when you're really going to start to see who Jonathan Gannon is. You're going to love whatever is taking place of Cliff Kingsbury, whatever entity. You're going to love it regardless. Well, I will. Because new, fresh, exciting. You don't really get to know somebody until 3 months into you knowing them. And then they're it's like anything. So it's going to be exciting. He's going to crush the press conference tomorrow. You just know it. But then a couple months in is when you're going to start to see things. And before I leave, I do want to just put a little seed into your brain here. In my humblest of opinions, you cannot link win-loss record and progress for the Arizona Cardinals in the 2023 season. Impossible. If they win more games than they lose, that's a bonus. It's not about that. It's about a complete and utter shift for an organization that has been a perpetual loser. And that opportunity to do it is something that is massively exciting. And thank you for being along for the ride. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow.